Welcome to another episode of Explained by AI. Today we're going to do a deep dive into large language models.
Yeah, those are evolving so fast.
It seems like every day there's something new, and I feel like you're going to have a huge impact on basically every part of our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
So I guess let's just jump right in. What exactly are these large language models?
So basically, you can think of it as a computer system, an AI system that has been trained on a massive amount of text data.
Okay.
So think of all the books in a library or just tons of articles all over the internet.
Wow.
And this allows it to understand and generate human language really accurately.
I see. So it's like a digital brain that's read everything and can now talk back to us.
Yeah, and the secret sauce is in how it's built. It's based on this thing called a transformer.
Oh, I've heard that term.
It's a type of neural network that lets the model connect the dots between words.
Okay.
It understands not just the words themselves, but how they work together, the context.
That's interesting. So it's not just recognizing words, it's understanding the nuances of language.
Exactly. And that's what makes them so powerful. They can translate languages, they can write different kinds of creative content, and they can answer your questions in a way that feels almost human.
It's amazing how far this technology has come. I mean, can you take us back a bit? How did we get to this point?
Well, the journey started a long time ago. Back in the 60s, there was this program called ELIZA. It was an early attempt at AI.
I've heard of that.
It could kind of simulate a conversation, but it didn't really understand what was going on.
Right. It was more of a clever trick.
Yeah, just pattern recognition. But then in the 80s and 90s, things started to get more sophisticated with probabilistic models.
Okay.
These models use statistics to analyze language, which was a big step forward.
So those were kind of the stepping stones to what we have today.
Yeah, you could say that, but the real game changer came in the 2000s with neural networks and word vectors.
Interesting.
Suddenly, we could represent words mathematically and capture how they're related to each other.
So instead of just seeing words as individual units, they could understand the meaning behind them.
Exactly. And then in 2017, boom, we got the transformer architecture.
That was a big deal.
It was a revolution. It allowed for parallel processing of words, which meant we could build bigger, more powerful models.
And that led to things like GPT-3, which I think is when a lot of people really started to pay attention.
Yeah, GPT-3 came out in 2020. It had a ridiculous 175 billion parameters.
Wow.
And it could generate text that was often indistinguishable from something written by a human.
I remember that it was like science fiction was becoming reality.
Yeah, people were using it to write scripts, compose music. It was mind-blowing.
So can we kind of peek under the hood?
Eh.
How do these models actually work? I mean, what's going on inside?
It all comes down to those parameters we talked about. They're like connections in the model's neural network.
The more connections, the smarter it is.
And training these massive models involve two main steps. First, there's pre-training, where we feed the model tons of text data,
Okay.
and it learns to predict the next word in a sentence or fill in the blanks.
So it's basically learning the rules of language, like grammar and syntax.
It's learning way more than that. It's also absorbing all this information about the world, how concepts are connected, even cultural nuances.
So it's building up a kind of common sense understanding.
Yeah, you could say that. And then once the pre-training is done, we move on to fine-tuning.
What's that?
That's where we specialize the model for a specific task.
I see. So you could take a pre-trained model and make it really good at customer service or maybe even medical diagnosis.
Precisely. The applications are endless, which is why everyone is so excited about this technology.
Okay, let's talk about those applications then. I mean, how are large language models impacting us now, and where do you see the biggest opportunities?
They're already having a huge impact on natural language processing, things like machine translation, text summarization, those chatbots we see everywhere.
It's amazing how much those have improved just in the last few years.
And that's just the beginning. We're also seeing them being used for creative purposes, writing scripts, composing music, even generating art.
I've seen some of that AI-generated art. It's pretty impressive.
And in the business world, they're automating all sorts of tasks, writing emails, doing market research, even generating marketing copy.
It sounds like they have the potential to really change the way we work.
And we're even starting to see them being used in education and healthcare, things like personalized learning experiences and analyzing medical records.
It's really incredible. The possibilities seem endless.
We're still in the early stages, so the next few years are going to be wild.
It feels like we're on the verge of a technological revolution.
I think we are, and it's going to touch every part of our lives.
Before we move on and talk about the future of all this, I think it's good to give our listeners a moment to just kind of absorb everything we've talked about so far.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
So for everyone listening, take a moment to think about what you've learned, what excites you the most about large language models, And what questions do you have?
I think the future of large language models is really exciting.
Yeah, what's on the horizon?
Well, one thing that researchers are really focused on is multimodal LLMs.
Multimodal.
Yeah, so imagine models that can understand and generate not just text, but also images,
Right.
video, even audio.
Wow, so it's like giving them senses, letting them experience the world more like we do.
Exactly. Think about the possibilities for like design or entertainment.
Yeah.
You could describe a scene to an LLM and it could create a photorealistic image or even a short video clip.
That's incredible. It could completely change how we create things.
And another area that's really interesting is specialized LLMs.
So instead of having one model that knows a little about everything,
Right, we could have models that are experts in specific fields like law, medicine, engineering.
that would be amazing for professionals in those areas.
Imagine a lawyer having an LLM that's been trained on every legal precedent ever.
Wow.
Or a doctor who can consult with an LLM that has analyzed millions of medical records.
It's like having an army of expert advisors at your fingertips.
But of course, we need to be careful about how these specialized LLMs are used.
Right, we need to make sure they're used ethically and responsibly.
We also need to think about the impact on employment and make sure that these tools are augmenting human capabilities, not replacing them.
That's a really important point. Technology should be used to empower people, not to put them out of work.
Absolutely. And I'm also really excited about the democratization of AI.
What do you mean by that?
As these models get more powerful, they're also becoming more accessible.
Okay.
We're starting to see smaller, more efficient models that can run on less powerful hardware.
So you're saying that it won't just be big tech companies who have access to this technology.
Exactly. Individuals, startups, small businesses, everyone will be able to use it.
That's amazing. It could really level the playing field and unleash a wave of innovation.
But of course, with any powerful technology, there's always the risk of misuse.
What kind of misuse are we talking about?
Well, imagine someone using an LLM to generate fake news articles or create deep fakes to spread misinformation.
That's a scary thought.
It's important to be aware of these risks and to develop safeguards to prevent them.
So we need to be proactive and think about the ethical implications of this technology.
Absolutely. Transparency and accountability are crucial.
It feels like we're entering a new era of responsibility, not just for the people who create this technology, but for all of us who use it.
We all need to be thinking critically about how we want to integrate these models into our lives and what kind of world we want to create with them.
It's a really important conversation to be having, and it's not just about the technology itself. It's about the impact it has on society, on the economy, on our future.
We're at a crucial point. The decisions we make now about how we develop and use these models will have a huge impact on the future.
It's a lot to consider, but it's also incredibly exciting.
I agree. It's a time of unprecedented opportunity, but also a time for deep reflection.
So what are some of the key questions we should be asking ourselves as we navigate this new landscape?
I think we need to start by thinking about the values we want to embed in these systems.
Are we designing LLMs that reflect our best aspirations, or are we accidentally perpetuating our biases and limitations?
And we need to consider the social, ethical, and economic implications of this technology.
It's not just about the algorithms themselves, it's about the entire ecosystem that surrounds them.
We need to have a conversation that involves everyone, technologists, ethicists, policymakers, everyday citizens.
It's a big challenge, but I think it's one we can rise to.
I'm optimistic. I think the future of LLMs is still being written, and we all have a role to play in shaping it.
That's a powerful thought. Technology is not something that just happens to us. It's something we create.
And with that power comes great responsibility.
Wow, it's really amazing to think about everything we've talked about today. I mean, the sheer scale of this technology is just incredible.
Yeah, and the potential impact on our lives is huge.
It really makes you rethink the whole relationship between humans and machines.
Definitely, that's a relationship that's always evolving. But large language models are like speeding things up so much.
It's exciting, but also a little bit scary, you know?
I know what you mean.
As we sort of wrap things up here, what are some of the key things we should all be keeping in mind?
Well, I think staying informed is really important. This
Yeah.
field is changing so fast.
Yeah, it seems like there's a new breakthrough every week.
Exactly. So you really have to keep up with the latest developments to understand the potential benefits and risks.
And it's easy to get caught up in all the hype and forget that technology is just a tool.
That's right. It can be used for good or for bad.
So we got to be really thoughtful about how we develop and use large language models.
Exactly. Making sure they align with our values and really serve humanity.
That brings us back to the idea of responsible AI development. I mean, how do we make sure these powerful tools are used ethically and for the benefit of everyone?
I think transparency is key.
Hmm.
We need to understand how these models work, what data they're trained on, what biases they might have.
And we need to have open and honest conversations about the potential impact on society, on the economy, on our future.
Definitely. And those conversations need to involve everyone, not just the experts.
Right? We need to hear from technologists, ethicists, policymakers, everyday people.
It's a collective responsibility. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
That's a good point. I think sometimes it's easy to feel like these big technological changes are just happening to us and we have no control over them.
But that's not true. We have the power to shape this technology and to use it for good.
So what's the takeaway message for our listeners today?
I want them to feel hopeful and empowered. The future of AI is not set in stone. It's a future that we create together.
I like that. So let's embrace the possibilities with a sense of wonder and responsibility, and let's work together to build a future where AI makes our lives better.
I think that's a great place to end it.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of large language models. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, but it's been a fascinating journey.
It really has, and we've covered a lot of ground, from the technical details to the ethical considerations to the potential impact on our future.
So to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. We hope you learned something new and that you're feeling inspired to join the conversation about the role of AI in our world.
Absolutely. The future of AI is not something that just happens to us. It's something we create. So let's create it together. Do you have any topic that you would like to have explained? Drop it in the comments.